Hello. Such an honor to be here. Thank you for the terrific introduction. Ray, hello, Lobos. Thank you for not judging me too much, the Colorado group. But you know, we're fine people with big chested. All the time here that we have to digest. But so do you, so we'll be fine. Also, shout out to the many people that made my visit possible. Is this too loud? Should we go over? Of course, Ray Hernández, Mexico, and Legorreta for taking care of me the past few days. Danette Peterson for making arrangements. The Valverde family for coming to my aid and relocate some of the photos that we'll be looking at today. And new friends and old friends from Colorado just having fun today. Okay. So I'm going to time is short, so abbreviated pleasantry. So a little bit about this talk. It comes as a bit of a B-side from the current manuscript I'm writing right now during my residency at the National Gallery of Art called Transplanetary Speculative Art of the Americas. I'm happy to talk about that project later on, but what you're hearing right now is a bit of a preview of some of that scholarship. So I'm just going to put myself on a timer so I know to wrap up. Okay, so to begin, on June 10th, 1983, La Gran Nación opened at the New Museum in downtown Manhattan, curated by Charles B. Sunny Rivera and Franklin Ida on behalf of Enfoco, an organization of mainly Puerto Rican photographers founded in Bronx, New York in 1974. The show marked the museum's initiative to turn curatorial control over to alternative voices in the city. Among the 65 photos defining Hispanic American identity was something out of this world, Ricardo Valverde's Alien Queen de los Muertos. Though wrongly credited to Ricardo Valverde, this piece is a stylish rumination of theatricality and futurity. Alien Queen is a vision in cosmic couture. Her silhouette is a geometry of vector shapes, a fashion mathematics of inequality, appearing somewhere between greater than and lesser than signs of humanistic value and worth. Posing before Valverde's camera, she tilts her head, curious about this Mexican-American man shooting her. She raises her hand in a verbal gesture, appearing like a hippie Vulcan, signaling peace and love. Very little about the look is consistent with the Day of the Dead sartorial lexicon. Nowhere seen are the fashionable motifs of bone and skull faces derived from Jose Guadalupe Posada's characterizations of Mexico's quote-unquote political corruption and social folly of the late 18th and early 19th century, as scholar Laura Perez observes. Instead we see a Carolina of tomorrow. Much has been written about this photograph and the Day of the Dead series to which it belongs. Some of this recent scholarship over the last 10 years is the result of newfound interest in the artist's photo archive revisited after his death from cancer in 1998. We can observe the work recirculating in a variety of group shows, mainly in Southern California, ranging from his first retrospective exhibition, Ricardo Valverde, Experimental Sites from 2014, and the show was incidentally curated by Cecilia Fajardo Hill, we'll be circling back to in a moment, to Oscar Olive the Obscure at the LA County Museum of Art in 2014, to Mundos Alternos, Art and Science Fiction in the Americas at UC Riverside Arts Block, which I curated in 2017, as Ray mentioned. However, when the Day of the Dead series is shown, it is polarized. Valverde's touch-up from 1991 adds ghastly tones, causing scholar Ramon Garcia to conclude that, quote, these images stand out because of their kitschiness and humor, and also because they are rare works of Chicano futurism, end quote. However, if we compare these two versions, other elements stand out beyond a proclamation of kitsch. We might ruminate on not only the misattributed name, but also the inaccurate date. Alien Queen de los Muertos is enunciated in 1982, and then again in 1983, and reproduced in 1991, with a noticeable difference. She is sealed in green skin. From the outset, she is clearly a time traveler, upsetting the progressive proclivities of straight time. And though Garcia refers to this monochromatic saturation as Day of the Dead Halloweenization, He omits how this portrait complicates the vocabularies at work in Latinx photographic arts at this time, which emphasize the barrio and landscape of the present. And we can see some of that from some of the works that appeared in the New Team show by Luis Carlos Barnan, as well as John Melendez's portrait of Cholo royalty on the streets of East LA. So in this way, her image connotes a Chicanx creativity on the horizon. This alien sighting has caused reconsideration about the visual sources of art making in Southern California at that time, which have mainly emphasized the import of social realism of the New Left, a body iconography of social resistance, or a public art to mobilize the masses. Here's just a few examples of what I'm sort of getting at here. So as Valverde's photograph of the alien queen reveals, there is something strange afoot in East LA. And while his willful disregard of reality in the photo documentation genre is a topic I plan to come back to later in this talk, I want to underscore how his snapshots capture another way of being and seeing Latinx culture rendered in alien skin. So in my talk with you today, I aim to think through what conditions led to this moment. Who were the performers behind these personas? What were the fashion design practices that enabled these extraterrestrial looks? And more important, what role did East Los Angeles play as an incubator, making this kind of alien existence possible? So to begin, I argue, here's a bit of roadmap for you, I argue that aliens have walked among us in the history of Chicanx art. To understand this otherworldly presence, we must examine how music, fashion, and more important, low-budget B movies galvanized a visual language, little remarked on in the study of East LA performance art. Certainly, the relationship between Chicano art, punk, even new wave music is established terrain in the field. However, a bolder interrogation of a science fictional vocabulary offers insight into how Latinx creatives staged a future existence where the liberatory imagery of queen alien rockers was foundation to a language of feeling alien. So drawing on interviews I conducted with people behind these alien skins, Armando Duarte, Flores, and Samuel Zanes, I will explore the history of glam rock and its stylish infusions into the Southern California music scene, where swaths of glittering fabric and stains of lipstick added androgynous flourishes to onstage future personas like David Bowie, Jabari, and Zola X. Next, I will discuss how alien imagery and sounds fused with a little considered facet of Chicanx performance expression, the creative fascinations of East LA artists like Willie Jaron and Armando Duarte, among others, walked in what I'm calling a future tense. So I argue that it is from their own body of backyards that they nurtured otherworldly personas, responding to the wastelands of city rubbish, the monotony of their everyday urban surrounds, and even the reruns found on their TVs. Then I will pivot to how these intertextual elements come together through the growing popularity of paper fashion, and in particular its usage in Day of the Dead festivals, with a principal look at East LA cultural organizations like Self-Help Graphics and the Osco Day of the Dead fashion show in 1982. I demonstrate as these upstarts were dragging the future into the present, they were also modeling ways of life that made community in late-night creature features and cultivated a shared spirit to transform their material reality through the wardrobes of tomorrow. So before examining the circumstances that bring us to these space-age portraits, it is important to understand how speculation and futurity challenge our understanding of art history and Latinx art history specifically. Knowable and linear chronologies order the field, categorizing visual knowledge into nation period rubrics, where modern, contemporary, art of the present are siloed. They have a difficult time grappling with the questions of what if, what could be, and what is to come. These provocations demand other approaches that can adapt to art that speculates on the existence of things that can never be satisfactorily assessed with our naked eye. An important inroad in my thinking comes from Afrofuturism, and as Yatasha Womack clarifies, fantasy work by and on behalf of people of color offers, quote, another dream tool in the arsenal to contemplate what may be coming and encourages us to be as ready as we can. This preparedness occurs through artists invoking space through sound, word, and visuals that appear to collapse time to help us re-experience ourselves, unveiling a new lens on the potentialities around us, end quote. Her commentary complements scholar Catherine Ramirez, who dubbed Chicana futurism in 2002, reinvigorating a race and science fiction lexicon with a Latinx outlook. For her, Chicana art dares to imagine new ways of being in the future, demonstrating closer symmetry between alternative futurity projects. Both Afrofuturism and Chicana futurism are profound to mobilize the elsewhere, the imaginary, and possible for socially transformative ends. So here we might think about Carmen Lomas Garza's show-stopping artwork, Camas para los Sueños, in this context. Two young women retreat on the roof, moon-gazing into the humid Kingsville night. Their vision stirs them, staring at what lies beyond the clouds. With the upward tilt of the head and the skyward point, the figures in Lomas Garza's work ask us to grasp other perceptual realities in tandem with the universe. Just what do these young women see beyond their earthly existence? What life exists outside the terrestrial arrest of South Texas and the oppressive grip of reality? This kind of dream tool gets at the thrust of what the theoretical tenets of speculation can do for our history as we subvert dominant Western notions of the real and oppose a stifling vision of reality imposed by exploitative global capitalism, as Mark Ozovitz argues. By empowering speculation in its big tent approach, I aim to situate science fiction alongside fantasy, supernatural horror, paranormal weird tales, and in a Latinx context, the satirical and political connotation of the illegal alien. And although a Latinx reclamation of this xenophobic and offensive language may be surprising to some, it is part of a broader literary project invested in the extraterrestrial figure. As scholar Matthew Goodwin, faculty here, argues, Latinx writers have created new space aliens that counteract destructive science fiction narratives and express the concerns of Latinx communities. So while Goodwin's comments are directed at Wrought literature, his insights are also applicable to Latinx image makers and performers, where Latinx body politic wears alien skins. The repugnant and toxic language of illegality are discourses rehearsed through the alteration of the body surface and literalized in sartorial vocabularies shaped by and in communion with imperceivable realities. These Latinx embodiments are indebted to queer and feminist performance retrenchments of time and space, dragging the future into the present in ways that allow an acrobatic that anticipates other ways of being Latinx, that is, Jose Munoz argues, are potential blueprints of a world not quite here. And so if these anticipatory personages have the power to point the way to the future, evidence of their visitations are by no means recent. They have been present throughout Latinx art history. Let's consider the first major Chicano art exhibit, quote unquote, in the history of Southern California. The Los Four show at the LA County Museum of Art, or LACMA, introduced an important visual vocabulary, culturally affirming imagery under the guidance of curator Paul Woodsman and Jenny Livingston. The iconographic uses of body graffiti, muralism, lowrider car customization, and thread-that installations cohered an image repertoire in which Chicano art was made legible for art publics. The Los Four show represented future promise. However, this utopian project at LACMA, much like the one staged at the New Museum in 1983, was disrupted by another vision, one more fantastic, raised east of the LA River. Performance artist and musician Willie Caron crashed the party. Joined by his motley crew of audio fashionistas and conceptualists dubbed ASCO, or Spanish for nausea, their appearance was likely startling museum attendees. Tinted blue, his epidermis almost baited our establishment types, daring them to talk about skin color. In an interview with Jeffrey Randell, Caron recalls, quote, "We painted our faces, we hung things from our bodies, and we just went to the opening like wanting people to see some part of Chicano art that still didn't exist, that wasn't in that show, that we felt had to be in that show. We performed without even performing," end quote. By embodying Chicano art that had not yet arrived, this low-remarked performance reaches toward a future existence, tangling the time that upsets, if not empties, how curators made this ethnic art category legible in a contemporary context. However, Caron's appearance at the Los Four opening is a referential test case, a tryout in the Chicanx theater of Future Shock. In fact, the action was merely a dress rehearsal of what came a few years beforehand. In 1972, David Bowie adopted the alternative ego Ziggy Stardust and trailblazed an era of glam rock. The English musician put away his hippie bell-bottoms for something more extravagant and out of this world. Dusted in glitzy eyeshadow and outfitted in AI-inspired metallic bodysuits, this flamboyant look was a corrective to the hypermasculine, gritty, honest rocker of the late 1960s. His performances became electrifying, spacefaring extravaganzas. He was science fiction personified, reported one fan. Of course, his otherworldly exteriority was coterminous with a defiant take on cisgender systems and outdated heterosexuality. Through his spacey facades as a self-proclaimed Martian bisexual, he visually trafficked in a space-age vocabulary where defiant desires and abject androgyny were the markers of tomorrow. Bowie was not the only musical act to perform queer alien desire. The self-proclaimed truest fairy of rock, known as Legorreta, sported his own brand of spacey adornments. Signed to Elektra Records, this openly gay recording artist was being touted as the next Bowie in full-page ads, Times Square billboards, and bus advertisements, even before the public heard a record. So you can sort of imagine, this is from his first record, so you can imagine this sort of image floating around Times Square and the buses, even before we've heard anything on the radio. So this moment arrived by way of NBC's Midnight Special in 1974, when host Gladys Knight told television viewers to welcome the act of tomorrow. This is a fabulous deep dive. Google this in the side. Google Legorreta performance and have been pulled out of the So a glittering Legorreta entered center stage, standing before his band called the Creatures in a silvery number draped in a springy overlay, giving the petite performer a pliable robotic exoskeleton to shed. His ensemble is a flamboyant take on the astronaut, which in the NASA Apollo era was largely defined by white, rural, and hyper-masculine military pilots. So by replacing the hard and impenetrable shell of the spacesuit with the flowery polyurethane bubble helmet, he is a queer, spacey counter-image blossoming into a glittering moon man. Gimmicks aside, 1974 proved to be a difficult year for this lipstick Bowie wonder. Largely panned as a Bowie knockoff, his crime was being ahead of his time in a symbolic and literal sense. Like that space bubble flowering into the visage of the rocker, pinker and queerer than the rest of his contemporaries, this glittering rock fairy was a disturbing symbol of strange things to come. His imprint, whether we consider Veron's appearance at LACNA with his citation of glam rock extravagant costuming, or even Marisa Lialzane's Alien Queen de los Muertos, is hard to deny. There's something about these alien skins that cannot be disentangled from this vocabulary of queer performance. But how do we make sense of this Chicanx investment in looking alien? Again, the year 1974 provides us with some clues. Just as the Los Four show was opening and Herón was parading around in his feathered cloth and blue-tinged skin, a young UCLA artist named Armando Duarte happened upon the famed Rodney Bingenheimer's English Disco, a nightclub on the Sunset Strip in March of 1974. A temple built to Bowie in all things glam, this hotspot was the latest attraction for LA's glitterati, looking for what England had to say about this style of rock, and not only sound, but also look. However, one group was certain to capitalize on this era of rock and roll, and its name was equally out of this world. Calling themselves Zolar X, this quartet of space-age Beatles turned a science fiction gimmick into a way of life. Quote, feeling like the future, looking at the past, as bandmate Zori Boy describes it. The band's debut at Rodney's English Disco was the first comic book set to music. Festooned in their signature antennae, space boots, and penciled Vulcan eyebrows. But these kids from East Hollywood blasted their song Space Age Love to a packed club. Among them was Armando Duarte, who was energized by what he was seeing. Young musicians in red, green, purple tights. Who are those guys, he recalls, asking a friend about the show. His astonishment was matched by the band's bold ambitions. With our iconic look and thundering wall of sound, we took literal to the next shiny level, they recall in their 2022 published memoir. That extraordinary sight of ray gun toting spacemen in cosmic couture resonated with Norte and thus sparked unexpected sources of creativity. In August of that year, Norte attended their performance at the Troubadour in Hollywood, a high-profile showcase, if not because of the night's headliner, Joe Bryant, who gave a promising yet even display of his lyrical talents. Zolar X was the opening act, and it planned to ride this queer space Vaudevillian publicity machine to new heights. The club was packed, and Norte arrived with art in hand. He edged his way to the front row, where he was able to present the band with a 2x3-foot drawing. He depicted Zolar X as spacefaring adventurers into an alien Amazonia and beyond. Quote, I put this piece against the mic stand. The lead singer was sort of doing this robot thing where he was turning around. He happened to look down and goes, his mouth opened up. And he picked it up and he held it over his head. And he showed the whole audience this piece of work. And he was grabbed it and hugged it, end quote. This is as Norte was recalling in an interview. Not only is the Troubadour performance remarkable because it attracted the presence of rock royalty, Harry Star and Kiss, Mickey Dolenz was there, shout out to the Monkeys, but also it became the unexpected vehicle from which a Chicano artist's science fiction artwork led into the alien performance, becoming a rock and roll prop. Once boosted and thrust into the air, this was no ordinary piece of Chicano art. It was part of music history, this harbinger of the future of SoCal sound, which grew queerer, flashier, more Latinx, even before the arrival of punk and new wave. Clearly, the shiny next level of the music scene was on the horizon, and it belonged to the creative vestiges of East LA, drawing from and drawing on the future. Norte's later exchanges with the band would parlay other creative collaborations. Several of his illustrations were reproduced in that memoir, enshrining his pen and ink work into their public image. This cultural exchange in image, fashion, Chicanx art suggests that they shared a common alien language, fluent in the science fiction vernacular. More than sharing the science fictional sights and sounds on the west side, the east side of LA was not bereft of cosmic happenings. The seeds of Norte's skilled speculative art making grew from the aliens he spotted in his own backyard. As a child, he recalled watching science fiction B-movies from the backseat of his father's car. Quote, my parents would take us to the drive-in, he recalls in an interview. My dad liked it because English was his second language. So when he would see something visual, he didn't really have to understand every bit of dialogue being thrown at him. He just knew there was a giant monster, there were flying saucers around him. As children, my sister, my son, Norte, and I would be in the backseat watching that movie so that all of that became our visual library, end quote. The B-film movie archive would prove invaluable in not only supplying him with a speculative repertoire from which to render these spacey band meetings that we see here, but also to extend his experimental aesthetic to a location central to Chicanx expressivity, self-graphics. A bit of a primer here for people in the room. So self-graphics was a creative hub established in East LA by a Franciscan nun, Sister Karen Boculero, and a gay male couple, Carlos and Antonio Ibanez around 1970. So this organization was responsible for energizing a generation of multi-ethnic, multiracial artists. Together, they mobilized printmaking in the key of quote-unquote radical compassion, as scholar Kenzie Cornejo argues about the organization's collaborative ethos. It also galvanized printmaking as an apparatus of political communication for residents through the Valuable Arts Program and Galeria Otra Vez, the exhibition arm for the organization established in 1976. However, the meaning of exhibition would be further tested in 1980 when Willie Caron presented The Vex, turning a dance recital hall into an incubator for East Side Punk, according to scholar John Gumpel. This venue became the unexpected host to a punk renaissance of LA underground music. The Vex nurtured more feminist, queerer, browner sights and sounds, giving refuge to abject East LA punks otherwise ejected from the white hegemonic music scene on the west side. As a result, Caron cultivated new audiences at Solid Graphics in search of experimental forms of creativity. And here's just to give you kind of a sense about like sort of, Chicanx punk scene that was happening at the Vex at that time. So that search brought a young Armando Duarte to Galeria Otra Vez. And on February 5th, 1982, he opened his first solo exhibition, Barrio 2000. Its curation was made possible because of the bold vision of Norte's partner, Consuelo Flores, and her collaborator, Marisa Alzanes. Though featuring a survey of Norte's drawings and paintings, the exhibit was a mixed media atmosphere, giving shape and scale to the artist's speculative impulses. Quote, Armando really was the one that brought this Marvel science fiction type of outer limits feel, Zanes recalls. Norte's Barrio 2000 show is an actualization of what he tells me is, quote, out of the norm. I was out there seeing the same things every day, going to school and seeing, oh, that's a senora going shopping. And oh, that's an old retired man sitting on a bench there. So I said, what if the guy had a robot head? What if his skin was green? I would always question and say, what if, what if, what if? End quote. That anticipatory question undergirded the curatorial premise of his show and shaped the environment the gallery goers would encounter. Norte's take on the new millennium is hinted on the Galleria Otra promotional flyer. Done in pen and ink, Norte draws a familiar scene of barrio life, upended by an unfamiliar East LA new millennium. His rendition of Cardenales hanging street side is replaced with AI, suggesting that the cholo of the future is made up of robotic parts. An urban landscape offsets this hulking machine worn down by material decay, its plumes fumes spelling out alien visions, as you can see that at the top there into the darkness of night. The wall cracks, ruins, crumbles, its degradation is further accentuated by a trash can at the drawing's foreground. Dented and turned over, it spills e-waste into the streets. Norte's motif closely recites what Jarko Zubin calls cognitive estrangement, in which our sense of everyday reality is strangely or dissimilarly played here, practiced by Norte with a more Chicanx speculative twist. His perspective was further stirred after spotting refuse overflowing onto East LA gutters. Quote, I remember once riding with my cousin in the City Terrace area, and I saw these trash cans, I saw all this stuff just thrown in there, plastic kids' toys, things hanging out, and I said, eventually you're going to find a computer sitting in a trash can one day. His prophetic eye tells a story about a techno-dystopia where homeboys are robots and street placas are engraved into dilapidated walls with laser pens instead of spray cans. The drawing's attitude is perhaps closer to a storyboard outtake from Ridley Scott's cyberpunk masterpiece Blade Runner from 1982, about a post-apocalyptic LA in the year 2019, where geishas with alabaster complexions tower over the city, and bioengineered replicants bear skin or read the newspaper under neon light. That's an inside joke for the Decorative. It's worth noting that it's true, I see you. Okay. Target audience. It is worth noting that Norte's exhibition actually precedes this film's release by nearly 6 months. So the titling of these photos in the Valverde's corpus is odd. His snapshots documenting this show are called Consuelo y Marisa, Las Dos Blade Runners de Islos, and Armando Norte, Blade Runner de Islos. And I apologize for all of these images, folks, but they've never actually been formally photographed by the state yet, so that's a conversation I'm having about that right now. But so by doing this, right there, Valverde is conflating Norte's work with a science fiction film after the fact. Certainly Valverde was no stranger to the self-graphics crowd, as he was an early fixture in their creative milieu in the 1970s. His presence at Galleria Otra dates to 1979, where he had a group show called Interurban Landscapes. He was intermingling with East LA auction news and was typically seen with a camera in his hand. By conflating Barrio 2000 with the Hollywood film not yet arrived, his labeling perpetuates a patchwork of timelines and fractured teleological linearity. His heterochronic approach says something about his sense of reality and awareness of an alternative existence that this group of performers festooned in alien skins brings to his attention. It is this comprehension that makes him well-suited to present those futuristic personas that intentionally breach westernized circuits of space and time. Valverde's penchant for the extraordinary in East LA is a harbinger of things to come. The accomplishments of Barrio 2000 are its efforts to alter our senses, to give flesh to comic book cartooning, and ultimately to transport the self-help graphics audience into the not yet realized versions of an East LA on the horizon. If an exhibition format could place a future for Chicanas and Chicanos, What might speculative art making do for other kinds of Chicanx visual vocabularies? The next performance project between Norte and his collaborators returns to a familiar question undergirding his practice. What if El Dia de los Muertos was in the future? To answer this, his contribution to the Day of the Dead with Possible Paper Fashion Show on November 7, 1982, were equally provocative, finding reuses for media salvaged from the waste bins of cultural discard, like the trash technology found at its feet. And you can sort of see that to the left of the photograph, this like overturned garbage TV box, which is really kind of prophetic for his day. So, Day of the Dead self-help graphics was a pillar of the organization, an idea sparked by co-founders Carlos and Antonio, even as he went in 1972. They convinced Sister Karen that an inaugural procession would put self-help graphics on the map. 10 years later, that celebratory festival drew thousands of people and spurred similar parades across the U.S. in a transcultural transfer of women of pre-Hispanic origins from Mexico and Central America. However, its ritual practice of red installations and costume pilgrimages to Evergreen Cemetery would be reimagined through Norte's cosmic tour. He produced 4 looks with makeup, garments, and accessories to match. A preview in an LA Times article entitled Fashion 82 hints at the ways Norte innovated the sartorial vocabulary of calaveras and carinas with an embrace of all things lowbrow and improvisational. Whereas other creatives like Osco would be regarded for their thrift store glamour, developing characters from the bargain bins into Goodwill. You can see an example of that in their piece, Aspen Mural. Norte mined the future from a material closely inlaid within Chicanx self-expression, paper. At this time, paper fashion was all the rage. Evidence of its reach can be found in the work of another Osco collaborator, Gale, who you can sort of see a glimpse of the work there in the cover left-hand corner. Chancarillo fabricates inexpensive looks for his fashion photography. Quote, paper fashions are a satire on the inaccessibility of high fashion to many people, he remarks in an interview from the LA Times. More than a social commentary, these garments reclaim a medium already known to autographed workers who long produced cultural symbols through the plentiful and affordable reserves of paper supplies. According to Consuelo Flores, quote, paper fashion started as a concept, more acknowledging the finite period of time that we are here on Earth. But Gale was a part of that ideology, because as you're creating it, just like life when you presented it, it can very easily be destroyed, end quote. By outfitting his collaborators in this material, Norte designs fashions that borrow from the same creative register as Papel de Galo and Papel de Flor, and thus belong to a rich Mexican-American cultural milieu. In this way, Norte continues the tradition, but with a closer awareness of paper as discard. In fact, the ephemeral status of the material was once revered as an innovation of the textile industry in the late 1960s. Stevens Hosiery, the second largest textile company in the U.S., was developing a disposable clothing prototype, a sign of fashion's future. By reoccupying material for the craftwork and future fashion, Norte's turn to silhouettes also borrows from the low-budget wasteland of B-movies, a natural fulfillment of Chicanx futurity born from discard. Evidence of Norte's ingenuity with paper fashion design is central to Valverde's photographs from the 1982 Osco Paper Fashion Show. This snapshot of Armando de Consuelo to El Dia de los Muertos depicts the couple in what LA Times reporter Mary Ward calls a parody of the clothes Norte sees in great movies on late-night television. With Valverde's revisionist colorization of the original black and white photograph, he reveals the outfit's original crimson hues. Consuelo Flores' red space number is embellished with chrome bones, remnants of future calaveras are turned into a shiny textile. Armando's dramatic visage is a complementary accent to Consuelo's spacesuit and matching red lip. His half calavera design was an innovation for the time and earned him additional comment in Rourke's write-up. She observes, quote, the makeup is half glamorous, half grotesque, with the schizophrenic faces in Pablo Picasso's Cubist paintings, end quote. By linking his maquillage to a European avant-garde break from the canvas's flat perspective, she rightfully regards his face paint for the recognition it deserves as it subverts reality, continues a Cubist break from Renaissance painting and furthers the vein of Chicanx cultural tradition and music underground. His visual rendering of bloody hue elicits associations of violence and assault, references drawn from not only his experiences as a racialized subject under invasive police surveillance, certainly in UCLA, but an intentional callback to those clubs on the Sunset Strip. In LA's punk scene, mosh pits would leave aggressors bleeding from slam dancing, much like the rags tied to his body by tourniquets. However, in this space opera, he is no Jedi rescuing a helpless maiden. Here he literally stands behind Consuelo, who is armed with a ray gun. While her blaster points away from Valverde's camera, it is self-defensively raised and secured in her tactical hands. Unbeknownst to the photographer, its polysemic symbolism calls back to the ray gun accoutrements sported by Zola X, and even nods to a newly elected President Ronald Reagan. Norte's turn of phrase is cleverly directed at the apocalyptic disaster awaiting us under the president's nuclear arms race against the Soviet Union. In this way, these performers' science fictional adornment is consistent with the ways in which paper and Chicana and Chicano art has aided in social transformation, political protest, government dissent, and now points our way to a future existence. Whereas Valverde's revisionist polarization in this picture creates what Ramon Garcia observes as, quote, a retro look, making the images cinematic as if washed in technicolor in more subtle ways. His reprint of Marisa Gale as Alien Mundos Alternos is bolder and more aggressive in practice. Saturating her facade in hues of green, he extends her extraterrestrial luminescence from garment to skin. Her color washing is perhaps a symbolic call in response to Norte's speculative inquiry about a future East LA. Quote, what if the garment had a robot head? What if the skin was green? Quote. So by blurring the division between body and art, Valverde builds upon Norte's Candace and Marisa Gale corporeality, making the image less about Day of the Dead Halloweenization and more about being alien through flesh. This co-conjugation between Chicanx art, life, and even film is given further clarity when you consider Valverde's title, Alien Queen de los Muertos. Like his previous pictures, this label is drawn from the BBB Science Fiction Archive. It references Queen of Outer Space, a 1958 Allied artist vehicle starring Zsa Gabor. In this film, Venus is ruled by an extraterrestrial monarch. She governs the planet with absolute authoritarian power. She bears a glowing mask. Her face is ruined by wars with men, and as a result, no man is spared except for a few mathematicians and a couple scientists. So, yeah, okay. Called lesbian practicality, actually. So after a crew of astronauts are shipwrecked, one alien woman, with a Hungarian accent no less, spares them. She's in search of love and freedom from what can only be considered a homosocial Amazonian planet. And with the help of men, these alien women overthrow the old guard and heteropatriarchy is restored. So although Norte's referential paper fashion design is not a replica of the film, he gives the garment an armored look with pattern vector shapes more reminiscent of 80s New Wave cool than mid-century modern space age, but by delivering another vision of the alien queen, shielding her from the onslaughts of heteronormativity, she appears at the Oscar paper fashion show prepared for battle. Bearing a clear mask, adding a reflective sheen to her visage, she crashes the party, takes no prisoners, and in that Louis Caron sense, dares the public to see some part of Chicano art that still didn't exist. And so with Valverde's retroactive retint at work here, Liel Zanes punctuates an important though little regarded dimension of an East LA art and performance scene. She becomes the embodiment of a queer feminist social alterity, the Chicana of tomorrow. And so it is for these reasons that Valverde's intervention in a self-portrait demands reconsideration. As he has retouched his photo archive in 1991, he revisits Portrait of the Artist as a Younger Man. He borrows from the debut novel of James Joyce's allegorical Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. This book about the search for truth from a life dedicated to the arts is parodied with a photographer's retort against observational reality. Positioned before the camera, his environment turns yellow, his skin is stained cyan, his mouth lip-sticked. The series look at the camera lens as given alien flourish, perhaps retroactively bidding his membership to a creative cohort instead, not with the present, but one that drags the future. This blue hue exteriorizes a feeling of alienation that curator Cecilia Fajardo-Hill, who did his retroactive show, picked up in her catalog. She argues, quote, because he was seen as a minority artist and because his photography dealt with subjects that were seen as alien, he fell into the deep pool of misunderstood outsider artists, socially and culturally rejected, end quote. Her choice of words is apropos, perhaps nodding to the way that rather than work in the uncritical realm of documentaries photography, the Lesbian occupies the stranger fringes of Latinx counterculture, choosing to picture aliens over Chicanx political protests and movement rallies. In this way, he found kinship with these multi-hued figures of East LA austerity. And like that pane of glass he holds before his visage, he invites the viewer to contemplate those creatives attuned to distorted realities and alternative existences, those that stand to rupture the pervasive role of the present in Chicano visual culture with queer possibilities from the future. Reality resides at a jagged edge, he seems to conclude. Its transformation belongs to those bold enough to bear their own alien skins or to drag it. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Rob?
All right, let's have the reception. All right.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Very excited about this work, but I know it's also in conjunction with a bigger project that you're also working on. So as one mentioned it earlier, can maybe tell us a little bit about this project in that context?
Sure, yeah. I think the new project focuses sort of on this idea of a transplanetary approach to Latinx art. So what I'm sort of thinking about is like, returning to that early image from the beginning that Criminals got from Sueños, and really sort of thinking about like the connections that are being made, not just from our sort of the predominance of a terrestrial grounding and understanding of what Latinx art is and means, and that this metaphor of land and tierra is something that we work with time to time. Even some of those like really key photographs of Leonard, escaping me of the Bristol farm workers, it's all very horizontal, stoop laborers close to the ground, really deep up. And so one of the questions I sort of pose in the book project is what happens when you begin to like look up and those new imaginary to be possible when you get to move away from that sort of horizontal access of understanding what identity is, we begin to like think about the vertical borderlands. And so the project is moving actually more closely to the science of science fiction and thinking more about the role of astronomy, telescopes, scientific data visualization, borrowing on astrophotography, all of those things were not sort of dated into the last 10, 20 years, but that we can see it happening not only throughout the space age, sort of demarcated in the Cold War 1950s, but we can even see examples of it happening in like the late 19th century, or we might even go earlier. If we sort of think of stars and comets and conquest and Cortez, Zuma, and all that history. So the challenging thing, I think, for us working at those intersections of art, science, and science fiction is to develop an archive around it. So what I'm sort of yes.
I couldn't help it. Just thinking about the years in the early 1970s, I was thinking rock and roll literature. I'm thinking John Waters, comes into the picture.
Yeah.
Are there any possible intersections with that kind of developing thematic aesthetic and what you're talking about?
Sure. I mean, like one of the artists that I've worked on previously, Cyclona, sort of actually claims that the draggy androgyny of Rick and Fur was actually stolen by Cyclona, who was already dragging it out in lingerie and red lip and fur and the sort of outrageous performance, fulminations. In 1969 in East LA, this is sort of where those of us that are working on, queer color routine, trans color routine, make this claim about the sort of coloniality of queer studies that happens. Continually perpetuates these narratives that like the gravitational force of all that is queer happening in the big city and these like gay neighborhoods and things. It is happening in the body, it is happening in the romance. It just hasn't been documented yet. And it's just so fortuitous that artists like Cyclona has survived as long as he has survived given certain circumstances, both his quality of life as well as the AIDS crisis, but also had photo documentation of those performance interventions. So Writing a Picture Show is like very much a presence, but it's a presence more as a appropriation of things that were happening in these early 1960s. As a sort of stands in a larger queer Latinx performance art corpus. That's what they're out there. Thank you for coming.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to hear your talk. As you were talking, I guess I was, and you just mentioned like gravitational force and kind of the science and the theme that you're going here. I guess I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the temporality of drag, right? So when I think of drag in terms of like dragging something, right, or like it's kind of slow, right? Or in terms of like aerodynamics, with a rocket you want to reduce the drag, right? So you kind of move things along and move things quickly, right? So I guess I wonder if you could talk about the tension between futurity and forward-lookingness and the pull of the drag.
Yeah, I think that's a big question.
Yeah.
And we're breaking out. I mean, one thing that me and Lincoln's fine when we're asking is about walking in step with a different time. And I think like the impulse of like alien skins were things that I was seeing when I was co-curating the Mundos Alternos exhibition, interviewing artists that claim to have had contact with extraterrestrial life, or claim about missing gaps of time, or those that are in communion with higher powers or spirits or other things like that. I think that for people that are much more oriented around traditional, empirical cultures of science, that's just hogwash, and we need to sort of like put that aside. But I think that coming at it from my sort of interdisciplinary perspective, like those experiences matter because they've been generated, they've been responding to it, they've been making what I call cosmic robot, right? Like literally using an artist like Ali David, based on San Antonio, right? Literally painting on fabric, big, low, pigmented hues because the aliens want to. And so sort of like drag, very broadly defined, is a sort of willful dragging through space and time. And we sort of like being sort of out of step with the present, or at least in step with something else. And that's the reason why sort of like that comment from Willie Carroll about like, I want, trying to embody the Chicana art that does not exist yet, but that needs to exist. And that is time. Also, thank you for that. Well, that's what I'm sort of getting at. But the idea of slowness, I think, is an important one, and also and that also interrogates our Westernized understandings of time and space, right? I think, like from a Maya perspective, right, like thinking of, other sort of deep colonial time scales, and I leave that more to professionals like Maple or whatever. But an artist I interviewed for the book project, Beatriz Cortez, sculptor extraordinaire, talks about what the mountains are moving. Earth is moving. Our surrounds are moving, but it depends on our sort of definition of time scale. That's something that like more indigenous perspectives on time and space, how to like honor and understand ancestral lands and how historically been moving. It's just something that's happening so glacially we don't see it in our human eye, and that is not a polarizing force, but a generative force for the whole other thing of art making that I think also challenges the Western colonial understanding of time and space that long ever how we talk futurism, Latinx, futurity engagement with the space age. Yes.
And so, I just want to say thank you more than anything because we grew up in East LA. It's so nice to see new stuff that I didn't know about and to learn from your new researcher, this research that you've done. So I spent a lot of time in South graphics, so it's always nice to learn about
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, but and something that sort of, fell out of the talk just for like sake of time is like, Norte and Consuelo continue to collaborate, produce work. In 1983, he sort of like, commemorates that Gale in paper fashion for a 10th anniversary Day of the Dead print that he makes at South Graphics. And so in 2019, the folks at South Graphics decide to bring back the paper fashion shows as a fundraiser. And so the paper fashion gala is principally its principal objective is to get artists to create paper fashions based on the South Graphics archive. And so he then visits this piece and creates new paper fashions that his son, who is now like grown, our age, as old as you won't think, his son and his son's partner, they perform in those new paper fashions. So I'm sort of interested in them as I work and develop this piece. This also includes the re-performance of that science fictional archive that has historically